Hello, and welcome to the Bon Secours Mercy Health Sports Medicine Education Session for parents and students. My name is Justin Seligman, and I am an athletic trainer with Bon Secours. I work with Portsmouth Public Schools, primarily at Waters Middle School and IC Norcom High School. Today, our topic is managing type 2 diabetes. Let me share my screen here with you, and we will get started. All right. So here's where we're going tonight with this video. It's going to be very brief, just an overview of everything. And if you're interested in specifics, definitely get in contact with us and we can talk more. So the questions are, what is type 2 diabetes? What are its effects on the body? How do we treat patients who have diabetes? And recommendations for management. So what do we do? What do we do about it? So brief overview of diabetes. There's type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Only covering type 2 in this video. Maybe later we can do another one on type 1 if people are interested. Type 1 is more rare. It's only found in about 5 to 10% of the total amount of people who have diabetes, but it is more complicated. And there are more risks associated with physical activity and type 1 diabetics. But unfortunately, our kids are increasingly being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And it's something I really want to address because I've been in practice now as an athletic trainer for 9 years. And when I first started practicing, nobody had type 2. No kids had type 2, working in high schools and middle schools primarily. But now the last couple of years, I have several athletes in the middle school and high school who have type 2 diabetes, and it's becoming a big problem. So I really want to kind of get to the root of that because it is a totally preventable and treatable form of diabetes. So what is it? What is it socially? What do the numbers say? So 34 million Americans have diabetes. That's 1 in 10 people. Undoubtedly, you guys know several people who have it, and maybe multiple people in a family have it as well. Not uncommon. 90 to 95% are type 2 diabetics, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. So the vast majority of people. So again, this isn't just for kids. This isn't just for students, but also for parents and for family members. And I would encourage you to share this if it's helpful with other people you know who have diabetes. Estimated cost on our healthcare system nationally, just from type 2 diabetes, is $327 billion. And this was a few years ago. I think this was numbers from 2017. So by now it's surely gone up. And more people have it now than they did then. So it's a ridiculous burden on our healthcare system. And like I said, it's something we can definitely treat. We used to only see it in older people, but now, like I said, our kids are getting it. Why is that? What are the factors over the past couple decades that maybe have led to that? And there's a lot of different factors. The ones that are primary, the ones we're going to cover tonight, have to do with being overweight, being obese, a lack of physical activity, eating poorly, eating a poor quality of food, and not getting enough sleep and having a poor quality of sleep. So a third of our kids are overweight. So we have categories of overweight and obese. Thankfully, not as many kids are obese, but if you're overweight, you're on the track to get there. And right now, 33% of the kids in our country are that, which leads to a higher risk of getting chronic diseases, including type 2 diabetes. So what is type 2 diabetes physiologically? What is it in our bodies? Well, it helps to understand what our bodies normally do when we eat. And then we can explain why diabetes develops and what the pathological or the illness kind of pathway is. So normal function, we eat food and drink um, pretty much anything but water. Our pancreas, which is an organ in our gut, creates this hormone called insulin. And this hormone basically binds itself to blood sugar, or glucose, as we call it. And in the blood, insulin and glucose are together, and insulin carries that glucose to cells so that the cells can use it for energy. So it's basically like a transporter and kind of the key to get that glucose into cells. So insulin and glucose. So here's a little image of what that kind of looks like on a basic level. So pancreas right here, and then the yellow dots here are the insulin. This is a blood vessel that it's going through, and then glucose, kind of pictured as sugar cubes here, not a bad representation, are together in the bloodstream, and basically this insulin helps to attach to these little receptors on cells. So imagine this is like cells in your muscle or something like that, and it attaches to these receptors and allows glucose to enter into the cell and to be used as fuel for the cell. So what happens when that normal, healthy function starts to break down? Well, you really don't go straight from healthy function to diabetes. There's usually stages that people go through that we know about now. Usually the first one is what's called insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is basically your pancreas releases insulin when food is eaten, but your cells, for whatever reason, have become resistant to the insulin, which means the cells don't open and allow the glucose to come inside, which means your body then stores the glucose, the blood sugar, as fat, as adipose tissue, leading to being overweight or obese is one of the causes. Another aspect of insulin resistance could be also that your pancreas isn't producing enough insulin because it's been overtaxed and produced too much. So there's a couple of different versions of that. Typically type 1 diabetics need insulin because their pancreas isn't producing it. And usually they're like that from birth or early childhood. But in type 2 diabetes, that can also develop, but it's a little bit more rare. Typically, it's the cells that are insulin resistant and don't allow the insulin to attach and allow the glucose inside. If you have that for long enough, you go into a state which is called prediabetes, and prediabetes is technically measured by the amount of your blood sugar taken, like a finger prick test usually. It's taken at fasting state, so you haven't been eating anything for the last 8 hours or so. You take a test like that. Prediabetes is typically a blood sugar range between 120 and 125. Typically, if you have a healthy blood sugar, it's usually below 100 when you're fasting. So the prediabetes, 100 to 125, so you've developed some kind of insulin resistance, but you're not quite diabetic yet. You haven't received the diagnosis. So it's kind of that in-between stage. And of course, then we get to diabetes, which is typically fasted blood sugar over 125. The staggering thing is that it's estimated that about 50% of Americans are insulin resistant, which is a huge number. So half of Americans are on the path to developing prediabetes and diabetes in their lifetime. And then 88 million Americans have prediabetes. So 88 million, so that's, what is that? 1 in 5? something like that. 1 in 5 Americans about have prediabetes and are almost to diabetes, um, which is a huge number. And the sad thing is most don't know it. Most people don't know they have insulin resistance. Most people, they don't know have prediabetes. You usually don't only find out after you've had diabetes for a little while. And again, this process takes a while. This takes sometimes years to develop, sometimes faster, but it takes a while to play out. And it takes a while to get a diagnosis because it takes a while to get these symptoms. And then for you to go realize you have symptoms, something's wrong, go to your doctor. So it's a huge problem. And, of course, like any disease, there's two main causes to it. One's genetic, so some of us are predisposed to getting this over our lifetime. And the second factor, of course, is lifestyle. So it's our environment. What are we doing despite our genes that we can't help? So this is really the part we want to focus on today. We want to focus on lifestyle changes. Lifestyle changes include sleep, diet, and exercise. So here's a little kind of picture of what I just described in terms of insulin resistance. So you eat food here, your pancreas releases insulin. This one, a little bit of insulin. So you could, like I said, have it, your pancreas isn't releasing enough insulin, goes into your bloodstream, but then also your muscle or your cells are resistant to insulin as well. So that then it causes that glucose to be stored as fat and not used properly in the cells. So what does all that mean for the body? Lots of different things, and it manifests differently in different people, which is kind of one of the difficult parts of diagnosis. So these are kind of some of the symptoms that could happen. You could notice chronically high blood pressure or high cholesterol when you go and get your blood tested at the doctor. You could notice thick, dark patches of skin, especially in the folds of your body, in your neck, your armpits, your thighs. Really common one is that you're more tired than normal and fatigued, especially after you eat. You'll notice that you just get really lethargic and tired, within an hour or so after you eat. Feeling thirstier than normal. This is a huge red flag for getting checked for diabetes and prediabetes. Brain fog, you're not thinking as clearly, especially after meals. Brain fog clears up maybe after you haven't eaten in a while, but then you eat again, it comes back. Blurry vision is a problem. Cravings, especially cravings for sugar and sweet things after meals and throughout different snack times during the day. And then lastly, frequent urination, especially at night. Even though you may have not been drinking more water than normal. Although often the two go together. The feeling thirstier makes you drink more, of course, and then you have more frequent urination. But sometimes, even if you're not drinking more, you'll be peeing more frequently. So the long-term effects. So those are kind of the short-term symptoms. These are the long-term effects if left untreated. And diabetes just is left to run its course. You could have heart disease, kidney disease, vision loss, hearing loss, nerve damage, and that's just to name a few. There's a huge long list that you can find online if you Google effects of diabetes. All of these are avoidable, and that's why I'm talking to you about this tonight. If you have any of these symptoms or a combination of these symptoms, you should be talking to your doctor about getting tested or getting your child tested. It's worth sitting down with your kids and talking about this stuff and paying attention to what your kids are saying and how they're acting. So again, talk to your doctor for testing if you have any concerns about this. So what do we do? What do we do about it? You get tested and you have prediabetes or diabetes. What do we do? So these are the four main treatments, four main lifestyle change options that we have. So the first one is working on sleep. And sleep is really the foundation for health. It's the foundation for everything that we do. If you're not getting a good quality sleep and you're not getting enough sleep, it will affect your diet, your exercise, your everything else flows from that. Next in importance is diet. It's a common cause of insulin resistance, and typically it's because we keep eating processed, high sugar, high carbohydrate foods. And if you do that for a long time, months and months and years, more likely to develop insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes. The next factor is exercise. Doing more exercise actually improves your insulin resistance. So we're going to talk in detail about what to do about that. So when I say improves insulin resistance, means it helps the insulin properly transport glucose and unlock the cells to get the glucose in. It helps your cells accept that insulin and use the glucose properly. And then of course, medication. If you get diagnosed by your doctor, most likely you're going to be put on a medication. Medication is great for treating the effects of the high insulin and the insulin resistance, and is very useful for management, but the medication most likely won't cure the disease. You really need to invest in these other aspects of lifestyle management, sleep, diet, exercise, in order to reverse it. And it takes a long time. So what are our recommendations tonight? First of all, I'm going to offer general recommendations, but knowing that every person is unique and requires their own individualized plan. So this is something that you can work out with your doctor. You know, if I have diabetes, my plan is not always going to be the same as your plan, especially if you're comparing an adult to a child or an adolescent, someone who's had diabetes for a long time versus someone who's just getting diagnosed, and the severity of the diabetes, how long it's remained untreated, et cetera, and et cetera. So there's all these kind of factors that go into to the treatment plan. So it's really important to have a great team of experts behind you. Of course, the doctor is number one, the head of the team. Talk to your athletic trainer about it too. Talk to the athletic trainers at your schools. You know, once we get back in school and start sports again here shortly, they're a great resource, and they can connect you with really good doctors and other experts to help you out and point you in the right direction and discuss all these different lifestyle factors we're discussing here. A third person that's really helpful to have in your corner is a nutritionist. They can help work on that diet piece, which is often the most difficult part of the plan to implement and to keep going. And then finally, a health coach. So for most people don't really know what health coaches are, but basically they're health professionals that they're not doctors. They don't diagnose you, but they basically help you when you receive a diagnosis and a treatment from a doctor. They help you implement that treatment. So they help you change your lifestyle. They help you change your behavior, especially when it's very difficult to do so. So think about it. I mean, you've been doing these, you know, if you have diabetes, you've probably been eating poorly for a long time, sleeping poorly, exercising poorly. You've ingrained these really bad habits into your life. And in order to reverse that, it's very difficult and takes a lot of time, a lot of help, a really good community and a team. And the health coach is really good at figuring out ways to help you manage those day-to-day, really practical pieces. So also it's something to look into. And health coaching is something I do as well, and have some background in. So definitely reach out to us if you're interested in talking to any of these people. All right, so here are the specific recommendations. So we're going to go right in order of how I talked about them before. So we have sleep, again, the most important part of this whole thing. If your sleep's not right, everything else is going to suffer. Your body is not going to recover properly at night, especially if you're an athlete and you're out running around, a lot of physical activity during the day. You need your sleep. So again, minimum of 8 hours per night. Very, very base amount of sleep for adolescents, but most adolescents are going to need more than that. They're going to need 10 or more hours. So parents, try to let your kids sleep. It's difficult, I know, especially if they stay up really late, but try to get to bed at a good time, get a good rhythm of 10 or more hours of sleep. So a few things to help with that, besides getting into a good rhythm and getting the amount of hours that you need, you also need the quality too. So we want quantity of sleep plus quality. If you get 10 hours, but you're waking up every hour, it's not really helping you. So a few things to help with that. Make sure your room is really dark. Make sure that there's blinds and shades on your windows. There's no street light coming in. There's no electronic lights on in your room at night. Make it as dark as possible. Cover up lights if you can. The darker, the better. Don't use electronics. Don't have electronics in your room. Anything that uses electricity, you should keep away from your head and your bed during sleeping. You will sleep better, especially if you keep your phone away from you. Put your phone on airplane mode at night if you can, and keep it away from your bed. If you use it as your alarm clock like I do, put it on the floor somewhere away from you. Believe it or not, where our minds stay connected to that thing if it's around us, and it makes us restless. So you'll sleep better, I promise, if you have the phone and other electronics away. Keep the TV off, keep music off. Um, Again, darker the better, quieter the better, no electronics, and then keep it cool in your room. So most experts suggest the warmest it should be in your room is 68 degrees. I know that sounds probably ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous to me. We don't keep our house at 60 degrees at night, 68 degrees at night. It's really expensive, especially around here during the summertime. Now that we're getting into fall, hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to do that. But 60 to 68 is a really good good sleeping temperature. What happens is your body temperature drops in order to fall asleep, and so you need the help of that ambient air temperature in your room, a fan, something like that, thin sheets to help keep you cool at night, so you can fall asleep easier and have a deeper, higher quality of sleep, which is what we're after. And then finally, the other two factors we're going to talk about here, physical activity and diet, also lead to better sleep. So not only does sleep help that direction with better activity levels and diet, but diet and activity also feed into better sleep, right? If you're outside and you're active for a long time and you hit the pillow at night, you're probably going to go out. If you're eating properly like you're supposed to, plenty of vegetables and fruit, you will sleep better. So here's diet. So number one, drink plenty of water. Cut out the sugary drinks. That's going to be huge, especially for the kids at school. Cut out the sugary drinks, replace it with water. If you have to use like a sugar substitute, you can put in water like Crystal Light or Stevia or Truvia or something like that. But try not to get your calories from sugary drinks. That's a huge problem we have. So we want to get rid of that. Replace it with water. So if you have to, carry a gallon of water around with you, and then throughout the day, just slowly drink that gallon all the way down. Some people need more than that. Some people need less. If you're outside sweating a lot and working out, you're going to need more than that. If you're just at home sitting around, you might need a little bit less. But make sure you're drinking water if you're drinking anything, and no sugary drinks. Now in your diet, you want to replace these other foods we're about to talk about with lots of fruits and vegetables. So again, this video is an overview, and we're not getting into the details about all of these, how to implement them, and it's going to be different depending on the individual and the family. But these are general guidelines, and we can talk more about specifics later. And if you want to hear more about specifics, make sure you say that in the survey at the end of the video. So foods that are, you want high fruits, and a high amount of vegetables in your diet. And those are going to take the place of the processed foods and the sugary foods. You want to avoid those at all costs, especially if you already have diabetes, but if you're on the road to developing it, even more so. And generally, this is just good advice for anybody, even if you feel fine, even if you're young, because like I said, insulin resistance and diabetes develops over time. And if you're even now having bad habits with eating lots of sugar and processed foods, when you're older, maybe even in your 20s, you could develop it if you don't have it now. I know when I was younger, I thought that I would never have any kind of chronic disease problems and I would just be able to eat whatever I want forever. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And for me, that caught up to me in my mid to late 20s. So it didn't take long after high school and college. So start those habits now if you can. And being at home with your families is a great place to start that. And you want to limit the amount of carbohydrates that you have. Again, don't have time to go into that, but basically your body releases more insulin when you're eating carbohydrates as opposed to when you're eating the other two nutrients, macronutrients, protein and fat. So your insulin level goes up a little bit when you consume protein like meats and things like that. But it hardly goes up at all when you eat fats. So, if one of the leading causes of diabetes is that insulin resistance, we want to treat that at its source, lowering the carbohydrates, increasing protein and fat is generally a good diet advice or diet change. Unfortunately, like I said before, diet is the most difficult of all the things to change. Um, this is why you need people in your corner. You need a team to help you to kind of change your lifestyle habits on this one. And then exercise here is the other thing you can change. So the guidelines, this is for adolescents and kids, at least 60 minutes of exercise activity per day. Now, it doesn't have to be organized activity. It can be just free play if they're younger kids. It can be walking around the neighborhood. It can be walking around the house doing chores, at least something where you're up, moving around, getting the heart rate up, getting a little bit of a sweat going. So at least 3 days per week of resistance training. So that means strength training. You need at least 3 days of that. You want to build your muscles, get them stronger. Doing that will help your muscles actually use the glucose more, will help your blood flow better, will help your insulin use and reduce insulin resistance. So strength training. And we're doing this right now. We're doing an online sports performance workouts. We have been during the summer, and we're continuing them during the fall now. So look for those videos here on the website Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So you're going to get free workouts to do at home for resistance training 3 days a week. So not really any excuse for these ones for doing the exercise. And then the other days of the week, you should be doing some kind of aerobic activity. So anything that gets your heart rate elevated. Again, get the sweat going, moving around, running, walking, bike riding, kayaking, whatever it is that's your thing. Do that the remaining days. And then I will always leave one day off, whatever that day is during the week, but only one. The rest of the days you should be getting kids should be getting some kind of activity in every day. So if you haven't been, or you and your kids haven't been doing any kind of activity, you need to slowly ramp that up. Don't just go out and just go all out and start sprinting and lifting heavy weights. Really start slow, very manageable, small bites, and then ramp up your time, ramp up the intensity, etc. Another thing is to keep it enjoyable. So some people really hate exercise and physical activity, especially when you haven't been doing it for a while. So make sure it's things that you enjoy, that you're going to want to go back to over and over again. Try new things, try new exercises, try new workouts, try new aerobic activities. A big help for your kids is not just kicking them out of the house and say, go exercise or go work out or get off your butt, but actually go out and do it with them. Go exercise with them. Do these resistance workouts, these sports medicine workouts and videos that we're putting out. Do them together as a family. It'll be great for you guys to spend the time together. We're all locked up in the houses anyways, all the time. Let's get some good benefits out of that time, and spend some quality time with our kids at the same time. And then of course, get your kids' input. Don't just force this kind of from the top down as a parent, but also get your kids' input about what they want to do. Obviously, sometimes it takes a little bit of a push to get kids to do physical activity if they haven't been doing it for a while. But gentle, slow nudges. Do it with them, make sure they enjoy it, and get their input on what they want to do. And then of course, progress, not perfection. We want to see progress in increasing physical activity and difficulty of activity, but we can't expect perfection from our kids. You can't just flip the switch and have them be great at exercising or diet or any of these things. Okay, so just slow progress over time is what we want. And then lastly, a big problem is that our kids are on screens, TVs, phones all the time now. So one helpful thing that I learned is, in order to increase physical activity, you need to decrease the amount of screen time. So keeping it less than 2 hours per day is the CDC recommendation currently. Even less than that would be great, honestly. We all spend too much time on our screens, so that's probably a good recommendation for everybody at this point. So decrease the screen time, increase the face-to-face with your kids, with your friends, and exercising. And then lastly, medication. I'm not going to talk really about this, but follow your doctor's orders. They're the experts on medication. If you are dependent on insulin, make sure you have your insulin with you. If you have any kind of diabetes, you always need to have snacks with you to boost that glucose if you have to have it, if it's too low. And then always bring your glucose testing kit with you wherever you're going, especially before exercise and sports, and always test before you start any kind of rigorous physical exercise. Don't exercise if your blood sugar is too low, which is typically below 70, called hypoglycemia, or if it's too high, hyperglycemia, and that's usually over 300. And your doctor may have different guidelines on those numbers specifically, so make sure remember whatever your doctor says on that is going to go. And your athletic trainer is going to help you with that too, and follow the doctor's orders. All right, so these are some resources for you if you guys want to look into this more. These are the CDC website articles, and I got some of my information from here. Really helpful, especially in the physical activity guidelines. It has a lot of great resources and ideas for doing stuff with your kids and getting them out and active. Also, preventing diabetes in kids is a really good link too. So that's the end of the presentation. Make sure you guys fill out there's going to be a survey link at the end. Make sure you guys fill out that survey. And please, if you want any more specifics about what I talked about tonight on here, please write that in there. If it's not helpful at all, let me know. Please let us know, good or bad, what your thoughts are, so we can give you guys what you need, what you want, the information that will help you the most on that. So I will see you guys in the future on one of our next videos. Bye.